Chris Scalzi here with
Matt Howell.
On this episode of The First Run, Matt and I are going to discuss off to a great start. Let's reboot. Here we go. Chris Scalzi here with
Matt Howell.
On this episode of The First Run, Matt and I are going to discuss Spider-Man Homecoming, the loving fusion of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the Sony Spider-Man franchise. We're officially relaunching Spider-Man as a cinematic franchise for the second relaunch, third time in the past 15 years. And this is our big chance to see how Spider-Man plays in the Marvel Cinematic Universe proper. We're also going to discuss Okja, the latest film, Matt, which I'm excited for. I know I look forward to talking to this one. Bong Joon-ho, who gave us, of course, the wonderful film The Host. The South Korean director returns the Netflix exclusive film. We're going to discuss that. And then finally, it's going to be a struggle, I think, Matt. We got some slim pickings, but we are going to run down who we think are the 5 best remaining Spider-Man villains to be featured in the next couple films. We'll get into all of that. Very, very exciting stuff. So let's start the show and hear a clip from Spider-Man Homecoming. All right, Matt. So I know you've been looking forward to this one. Spider-Man is your numero uno, number one comic book superhero.
He is.
You've already seen this twice, so I think we know where you fall in your feelings about the film. But let me ask you then generally, Matt, Spider-Man Homecoming, great Spider-Man film or greatest Spider-Man film?
I would say greatest Spider-Man film right now, because here's the thing. I know Spider-Man 2 has been always kind of held up of Sam Raimi's work. It's kind of the pinnacle of the Spider-Man movies, but I think this film really nails the entire tone and vibe of Spider-Man and Peter Parker, which, let's be honest, the Amazing Spider-Man series and the Raimi Spider-Man series, they both have their flaws, whether in Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire maybe doesn't make a very good Spider-Man, not as quippy as he should be, whereas Amazing Spider-Man, I don't know if Garfield's geeky enough to really get that kind of sense of what Spider-Man is. So I think they completely nailed this, and I think it's fantastic.
So why don't you share for people then, what is the general plot? What are we dealing here in Spider-Man Homecoming?
Sure. So it's after Civil War. Spider-Man's going home. He is basically really interested in being an Avenger, and he's eager to prove himself to Tony Stark and show that he can, be a part of the Earth's Mightiest Heroes team. And basically it's about him trying to really get comfortable and learning to be Spider-Man. He takes on some tasks on himself. Michael Keaton's character is the Vulture, who plays a guy who is basically collecting all of the alien technology from the Avengers battle, or the battle from the Avengers film, and making them into weapons. And Peter takes it on himself to try and stop him on his own so he can prove himself to Tony Stark.
There you go. So let me tell you, out of a lot of the supervillains rogues that Spider-Man has, I always felt that the Vulture would be one of the hardest for them to adapt and to make interesting and fun. And I just because if you look at the original costume design, right? It's ridiculous. And he's like a guy who's like in his 60s, I think. Like he's like he looks basically like Mr. Magoo in a green suit with wings is basically what Adrian Toomes looked like in the original comics. And I think just that, and his whole thing is just he can fly with the wings. So I always felt like he would be really hard to translate. But I got to tell you, Matt, I think this is the best villain yet we've seen in the Spider-Man series. And I don't hesitate to say it, Matt. I think this is the best villain we've had in the entire cinematic Marvel universe.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, Michael Keaton knocks it out of the park. He's menacing, but at the same time, he's gonna, he has a motivation that you can at least understand. He's not just kind of like this, mustache twirling evil guy like, a lot of the villains are. I mean, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And you're absolutely right. The thing about Spider-Man, which we're going to get into later, is a lot of his villains are really corny. They're really of that kind of 60s Silver Age time kind of thing. But yeah, I can't believe they were able to pull this off to where they turned the Vulture into a compelling, actually kind of scary villain, based on what they had to work with from the comics. So good on them.
Yeah, that was one of the big surprises for me, is how truly they were able to make him frightening, which is not something I ever really considered for the Vulture. And Michael Keaton's performance Tom Holland's great, but I think for me, the standout, the thing I enjoyed the most possibly is Michael Keaton's performance. He adds such dimension and depth to this character, where he's not, like you said, he's not just a one-dimensional supervillain hell-bent on conquering the world. There's actually like motivations and the things that inspire him to do what he does. There's like a twisted sense of honor that he has, and it's just a great character. And I was really, really I really was concerned it was going to be one of the weaker points of the film. It ended up being one of its biggest strengths. And Holland, though, I think is pitch perfect as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I think he's absolutely fantastic in this film. And one thing too is I was worried about, because this thing, Matt, had like 5, 6, 7 screenwriters. And it had a director. Yeah, and it had a director who hadn't really done anything ahead of time. So I really had some concerns walking into this thing. But it is hilarious. It has some fantastic action scenes. It's very bright and breezy. It's thrilling. It's great. This may pain me to say a little bit, but this is the best superhero film I've seen this year. I have absolutely no qualms. Wonder Woman's good. It's really good. But this is a step above that. And I know you talked last week about there was something that I had hoped for Wonder Woman that I'm going to get for Spider-Man. Yeah. Of course, what you're referring to is the theme song from the 60s cartoon show. There's like a beefed up orchestral version of that in the opening of the film. And it was great. And I was laughing and I was all excited. I think the younger people around me had no idea why I thought that was so fun. But there's lots of nods to some classic Spider-Man stuff in here. Lots of Easter eggs. Just a ton of fun. And I think so. Do we rank this as part of the Marvel group? We do, right? Though it's a joint venture with Sony, I think really this is Disney, Marvel, totally in control of this whole thing. Really, I think the only input Sony has is the fact that they own the rights to the character.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. This is an MCU movie through and through. They talk about the Avengers. There's crossovers with Tony Stark. There's Captain America shows up in a few PSAs that are hilarious.
By the way, did you stay through the end of the film?
Yes.
All the way to the end?
Of course I did. Yep. That was funny. That was hilarious. Yeah. So, this is definitely MCU proper. And I just, I would say this is and I was saying this last week. This is now taken over the top spot in my favorite of the Marvel films. I mean, this would be the best one. And what's so different about this is that, again, all the previous Marvel films, with maybe the exception of maybe some of the Iron Man films, they're all got these kind of huge stakes kind of thing, and it's all very cosmic. And there's Infinity Gauntlets and Loki taking over everything and all this stuff. Whereas this is just really, it's got stakes, but it's much more grounded stakes, and I think it works incredibly well. And I'm really interested to see, after Infinity War and after all the Avengers, they've said that Homecoming 2 will be like the Iron Man, kind of kicking off how the next wave of Marvel films is going to be. And if it's kind of more of a street level kind of thing, I'm really interested to see what they come up with.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm inclined to agree with you. This is the best film that they've churned out so far.
Churned out.
And it is kind of a factory, kind of assembly line thing at this point.
Sure.
But I mean, Civil War is great. Winter Soldier is great. I mean, what are we talking about now? So,
the Guardians
of the Galaxy, better. I don't know. I think because they're just able to capture everything perfectly about what makes Spider-Man what he is. The high school stuff, the fact that he's a kid, the humor, the everything. It's
this makes me hope against all hope that Sony will take this, and after the disaster they've had with the Fantastic Four, they'll let Marvel play with the Fantastic Four. Although if they do, I can see that kind of slate of upcoming movies kind of getting pushed back and kind of shoehorning the Fantastic Four in there. But I'd be totally worth it. And this also makes me just want so bad for Fox to let. It'll never happen, but I would just love for Fox to let them play with the X-Men, because that would just be fantastic.
Could you imagine like an X-Men Avengers crossover film? That'd
be the best. That would be so awesome. And there's so much they could do, because there's so many stupid mutants. They could do like New Mutants and Power Pack and like just completely worthless stuff.
And I got to admit too, one of the things I like about the MCU version of Spider-Man is the explanation from the suit just finally kind of makes sense. The previous movie suits, there's no way he made that damn thing. There isn't.
Right.
At least this time too. And then they have a lot of fun with that when there's like the AI that's in the suit halfway through, and it just, I don't know. There's just so many great little smart moments in this thing. And it's enjoyable from start to finish. I love it.
And, for all those people who are big on, they wanted Miles Morales, there is a little shout out that he does exist in this universe. So I would anticipate you will see him as long as Marvel retains the rights. I guess Holland's on for the 2 Infinity movies and then the sequel to this. We'll see how far he gets. I mean, maybe they'll bring Miles around rather than later, which would be interesting to see. And of course, again, as I alluded to last week, intimidation mode. Making fun of Batfleck, making fun of Christian Bale. I was literally, I have not laughed that hard in a movie this year, and it was perfect the way he did that. It was awesome, and it helped to play off of Donald Glover.
Yeah, I mean, that was great. The whole thing is great. So if just go see it. It's the most fun I think I've had at the theater so far this year. Well, no,
that's Baby Driver's the most fun.
Yeah, that's still Baby Driver. But
best superhero movie that's so far this year. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, hands down. So that's fantastic. So where are you coming down, Matt? What's your letter grade for the Spider-Man?
If I'm giving it basing it on the curve of superhero films, and MCU films, I'd give it an A. But if I'm basing it on an actual, I'd probably give it an A-. But yeah, I'm gonna go with A.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's what I'm going with too. I say A for Spider-Man: Homecoming. If you had a chance to see Spider-Man: Homecoming, please shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Matt, coming up next week on Blu-ray and DVD, not a lot of great stuff, but first off, one thing I know you're really excited about for July 18th, the complete set on DVD of TJ Hooker.
Oh, wow. Seasons. Wow, I cannot wait. Shatner, I just love Shatner's non-Star Trek work. For sure.
You haven't really lived until you've seen Bill Shatner jump on the hood of a car and hang on for dear life, trying to stop that bad guy. I don't know. I always love T.J. Hooker. I think we all know I'm a bit of a Shatner fan. You can pick up the whole series. The Promise, the film about the Armenian genocide that kind of just whispered in and whispered out of the theaters, is being released. It stars Oscar Isaac and Christian Bale. Is being released. Includes feature commentary with the director and producer and some deleted scenes. Criterion is giving us Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker, which was his final Soviet feature. It's a metaphysical journey, Matt, through an enigmatic post-apocalyptic landscape and a rarefied cinematic experience like no other. A hired guide, the Stalker, leads a writer and a scientist into the heart of the zone, the restricted site of a long ago disaster, where the three men eventually zero in on the Room, a place rumored to fulfill one of man's most deeply held desires. Includes a new 2K digital restoration and some new interviews from 2002, as well as some other new information. Ben Wheatley's Free Fire is being released. We discussed that for the show. Underwhelming, I think. Is that a fair assumption? Is that a fair script?
That's very fair.
We were kind of hoping we'd enjoy it more than we did. Includes audio commentary by Ben Wheatley and a couple behind the scenes making ofs. And then finally, Kong Skull Island being released on Blu-ray. A fun film. I feel like I have no interest in rewatching it, though.
Same. Completely same.
So, but if it's enjoyable to see, but there's no lasting impact, I think, really. And in the end, too, they have that tag in where, because they're trying to expand this whole monster universe, because it ties in with Godzilla, and of course a sequel coming up, which will be, Kong vs. Godzilla, and it's being directed by Adam Wingard. So I'm curious to see what he ends up doing with it. If you buy it from Best Buy, as always, you get your steel book. Target has a lenticular cover as well as a Creating Skull Island featurette, and Walmart has something. It says they have their own version of it, but I couldn't find any details as to what they included that was special for them. Includes director's commentary and some deleted scenes and making of featurettes. Matt, your straight to DVD pick of the week, I'm going with Karate Kill. When a mysterious loner and karate master, Kenji's little sister, goes missing in LA, whoever stands in his way of finding her will face the wrath of a lethal Karate Kill. I just love the box design for it. It looks very retro 80s. So if you're looking for a good down and dirty martial arts movie that's probably pretty terrible, you can check out Karate Kill.
All right.
Which was up streaming?
So I'm going to go with Star Trek Beyond. It's available on Amazon Prime and Hulu, the latest entry in the JJ-verse version of Star Trek. Although not directed by Mr. Abrams or have really much involvement by Mr. Abrams. So that's a good or a bad thing, depending on where you land. It's again, the Enterprise crew gets stranded on a planet. The Enterprise gets blown up yet again. That ship never seems to stay in one piece in any of the films. It's kind of a more of an actiony kind of an actiony version of Star Trek than Into Darkness. I think that's a fair assessment. Although I don't know if it's as good as the first of the Star Trek JJ verse, but it's fun to watch.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was a little concerned when they first done it because it's directed by Justin Lin, of the Fast and Furious films. So that's what I was terrified. We're gonna get like a Fast and Furious Star Trek. Mm-hmm. We kind of do.
Yeah.
it's a lot more enjoyable than I thought it was gonna be. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out, I think it's well worth your time. So, and you can see one of Anton Yelchin's last roles, sadly.
That's true.
So, yeah, it's a good pick. All right, Matt, let's move on and discuss Okja. But first, let's hear a message from the Mirando Corporation. So, Matt, I think it's clear that pigs deserve happy dreams. We have a lot to talk about here with Okja, but my first question to you, the one that seems to be all over the internet, is now, Matt, are you now a vegetarian?
No, I'm not.
No, this film didn't turn you? This wasn't
No.
the film that's going to change the world to give up consuming meat?
No. I like meat. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, you do. So with Okja, we
Yeah.
have a young woman named Miha, and her grandfather is participating in raising a super pig. This is a plan by Tilda Swinton's Lucy Mirando to help basically end what food shortages and starving and the pollution caused by the overpopulation, however you want to put it, of pigs on the planet. So what we do is, well, why have thousands of pigs if we can have a couple, that are massive and huge? And young Miha has just been raised and grew up with this pig, and it's a dear pet. It's a family member, really. And then one day, the big nasty corporation comes to take the pig back to the show in New York to exhibit all the great super pigs, and then be bred for more super pigs, and then maybe even possibly slaughtered for its delicious, delicious bacon. So Miha goes on an adventure with the Animal Liberation Front and some other folks to possibly rescue Okja. And yeah. So Matt, let me ask you. So you're clearly not going to be a vegetarian. Now, let me start off too. I'm not a big pork guy. The total consumption of pork tends to focus on just hot dogs and pepperoni, and really at that point, is it still even pork? So I feel my conscience is clear as long as Bong Joon-ho does not make a film about cows. Okay.
Cows and chickens and turkeys, and then you'll really be in trouble.
Yeah, then I'm in a world of hurt. And if there's something weird about the creation of pizza, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. So tonally, this thing is crazy. It's all over the place, I think. Well, I don't know if that's fair. Well, I mean, it's a breakneck. You know what it's like? This movie's like being on the Scrambler. If anybody remembers the Scrambler, where Joon-ho, there's a lot going on here, right, Matt? Because it's an adventure film, it's a heist film, it's a morality tale, it's a corporate satire, it's a coming of age movie, science fiction, and I got to tell you, I think Bong Joon-ho does a really good job of balancing all this. I think there are times when we get to the horror of this film where it is like you're all excited, right? Your adrenaline's pumping because of the adventure, and then we get to the slaughterhouse. And I just want to sit and cry for the next 6 hours of my life when I see how this works. I mean, I know how it happens. We all know it happens. We choose as a society not to think about it. Mm-hmm. So, what'd you think, Matt? Did this tonally? Were you on board? Did you handle the scrambler shifts of this movie? What are your thoughts about Okja?
Yeah, I'm with you. It does kind of switch from tone and what it's going for kind of throughout the film. And you know what? I think you're right. I think he is successful in making that happen. It doesn't seem jarring. It kind of just he kind of eases you into it somehow, even though it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But he does kind of kind of transition as smoothly as it can be, kind of going from kind of this Disney animal love story between kid and animal thing to, evil corporate, interests breaking them apart to kind of like this farcical thing when the ALF shows up, and then it gets like deadly serious towards the end. And I don't know. I think he manages to do that balancing act and that juggling pretty well. Now, I guess if I do have a criticism with this, I don't know if either I don't get what his point is, like what his message he's trying to say is, like where is he coming down on this, or
I think it's pretty clear
where
if I don't coming down on this.
But here's the thing. So this is what I'm saying. So like, all right, so is the heroine of the film Okja. We're supposed to sympathize with Okja, but it's not like, what I didn't get about the whole thing is she's grown attached to this obviously intelligent animal, right? But she lives on a farm. She lives, she's eating fish, she's killing chickens, I mean, you don't see it happen, but her grandfather's, probably pulling one of the chickens out of the yard to make their dinner kind of thing. So it's not like he's condemning eating meat totally. It's just like, don't eat something that's intelligent or is kind of cute and that you have a bond with kind of thing. So I don't know. That's where I'm trying to come down on what is he trying to say here as far as what's okay to eat and what's not.
Yeah, I think that's the only reason why I don't eat puppies is because I would if I could.
Yeah, well, I hear they're quite delicious. I mean, billions of people in the world can't be wrong. Just like billions of people eat horses, and we don't do that. So hey.
Yeah, I think I think that's an interesting point you bring up, because one of the things I took away from this is I think that Junho is really trying to nail home is that animals, particularly Okja, they have souls. I think that's what he's really trying to say here. And we should think about that. Maybe not an all total ban on the consumption, but maybe just to be more conscious of what we're doing and the fact that this is the impact we're having. And there is an environmental impact too to our consumption of beef and pork. There is. So, but again, maybe that's part of the issue. Is he trying to say too much? Does he have such a wide message that he needs to be lassoed a bit and siloed and focused a little bit more? I don't know. I did enjoy it. I think that he does balance the tonal shifts rather well. I think there's some absolutely beautiful shots in this film, particularly when they're on the farm. I mean, it is stunningly beautiful at times. And the effects, particularly with Okja and everything else, so some fantastic special effects work. And I think if anybody gets short shrift in this film, it's Tilda Swinton. She plays two roles in this, but I feel, and they focus a little bit on how her character, the Lucy Miranda version, and her twin sister Nancy, but the Lucy, we get some backstory, we get some information about the corporation, her family, but I think it's just, I would like to have spent maybe a little more time with that. I think it's more, or it could just be my affection for Tilda Swinton as an actor. I think she's fantastic. I think she's one of the greatest living actors we have right now. So whenever she's on screen, I just want to spend more time with her. But yeah, overall, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I'm leaning, I think I'm going B+ for this. I think there's a sense of wonder in this. This is like a socially, I think you said this, a socially conscious kind of Disney film, focusing on just really our consumption of animals. So I don't know. I enjoyed it. So I'm going to go, what did I say? B+? B+.
Plus, B+.
B+. So yeah. Do you agree with that assessment, or where do you come down?
Yeah, I did enjoy it. I thought it was good. It took me a little while to get into it, but once I did it, I did have a good time watching the film. I don't know if I liked it quite as much. I would give it probably a B. It's not The Host and it's not Snowpiercer for sure. It's a completely different film, different type of film, but
very different.
Still,
yeah.
It's different. It's still a very good film. And if you're into this kind of thing, I don't think it would change my mind. Hell, I have no problem if I had to, I guess slaughtering my own pigs if I had to, because they are delicious and they are nature's greatest animal. But I mean, I understand. I mean, it's like when we watched Food Inc. a few years ago, kind of thing. It's like where food is coming from, but at the same time, if you're gonna eat it, you got to be okay with this kind of stuff, and I'm gonna keep eating it. So there you go.
Fair enough. All right. If you got a chance to see Okja, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. And just a quick thing I want to mention too. I think I bring this up every time. So this exhibited at Cannes, and when the Netflix logo came up, a lot of people in the audience were booing, because I know there's this backlash against these straight to digital output kind of films, your Amazons. Like the same thing happened with The Neon Demon, and now this happened with Okja because it's a Netflix film. Let's pump the brakes on that. All right. If this is the way we're going to get certain forms of art now, because certain studios are not willing to back projects, I'm more focused on getting the art out there. Could theater chains suffer because of this? Yeah. But I think the problem is, Matt, is I think we are moving slowly, but we are moving into a time when you're going to have day and day releases. You're going to be able to stay home and watch Spider-Man Homecoming for $25, right? The day it comes out. It's coming. So the theaters are going to have to adapt to deal with that. And they're always going to be the group of people like me who are going to go see James Bond on the big screen. I am not, it's not worth it for me. I want to see that in the biggest, loudest screen I possibly can. So they will survive, but they're going to have to adapt. And they'll adapt too, oddly enough, by bringing some more artistic kind of limited fare into the theaters that you might not normally see. So I think in a weird way, it may actually help theaters. I don't know. We'll see how it all turns out. But my main point being, let's not boo that. All right, let's just celebrate the fact that the art exists.
I agree. Stupid con audience.
Frog leg eating. So anyway, too, I don't know if I told you. I wanted to ask you, where'd you see Spider-Man: Homecoming? Did you go to the Simsbury, or where did you?
I went to Plainville. I went and saw it in the IMAX 2D experience.
I saw it at the, I don't know, do they have a Dolby theater at that point?
No.
I saw this at the Dolby theater. I'm telling you, man, I don't even bother with IMAX anymore. If it's something if it's showing at the Dolby, I absolutely love that thing. So, all right, let's move on, Matt. We're going to talk about the 5 best remaining Spider-Man villains for the next films, plural. But let's take a moment, Matt, and listen to possibly one of the greatest moments in superhero cinema history. And we're going to ask you about, how is that pie? Gets me every time. How's the pie? So good. And of course, yes, go ahead.
James Franco's delightful overacting in that and the wink at the end over his shoulder is just the best part.
Fortunately, you have to go to YouTube to watch that portion of it, but that are clearly from Spider-Man 3, when Franco tries to convince Peter that Mary Jane is now with him. But just pure, unadulterated joy watching that Franco moment every time.
So Spider-Man 3 did give us that, so it's not all bad, I suppose.
That's true. All right, Matt. So let's go ahead and talk about it. What are the 5 best remaining villains that we can use in the Spider-Man universe? I'll go ahead and go first, so you get the ultimate number 1 since Spider-Man is your guy. Though I get a feeling that we're going to have a lot of overlap on this list.
Yeah, this is some slim pickings for sure.
So my number 5, though, I don't know if you're going to have, is going to be the Molten Man. Mostly because of the effects. Seeing that would be great. The Molten Man, of course, is a guy who he's doused in this molten kind of liquid metal, and he's able to kind of turn it really hot and be fiery and have it dripping. And I don't know, just conceptually, I'd love to see that on the screen. So, and it'd be cool to kind of see how Spider-Man would fight a guy that he really couldn't touch or get his webs on and all that kind of thing. So, I don't know, but I think purely for an effects thing, Molten Man would be one of my options. So that's my number 5. Oh, and I should say too, on my list when I was putting this together, Matt, I considered now if the person appeared in the previous film, but he wasn't the super villain, he was fair game. You know what I'm saying? Like if a guy before he becomes the supervillain. He just has a small cameo in the film or whatever. I consider
Right.
that fair game.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
So
All right. So my number 5 is now this one's a little different just because this character is kind of vacillated between being a villain slash a hero, anti-hero kind of thing. But he was initially, I think the first time he appeared, he was a villain in the Spider-Man comics. And I'm talking about Morbius the Living Vampire, which is seeing Morbius the Living Vampire on the screen so bad. I mean, and because, you know, this would be way too much, but Marvel got the rights back to Blade, so they could throw Blade in there too. But it would be this is basically a scientist who is, of course, messing with things he shouldn't be messing with, and he turns himself into a vampire, but he's not undead. He's just got like the powers and the thirst of a vampire kind of thing. So, and of course, misunderstandings ensue because you look like, you know, a monster. So I think it would be interesting to see. I just really want to see what they would do with the character. Probably completely out of place for Spider-Man, but I still kind of want to see it.
Or as long as he wears that blue 1970s disco jumpsuit.
Yes, with a huge deep V down to like his belly button and the like bat wings under his thing. Yeah.
It's the only way to do it. All right, my number 4 I think is impossible.
Okay.
And that's Hobgoblin. Because you need Green Goblin, right, to do Hobgoblin.
Right.
So
right.
I don't know how they could pull. I mean, they could probably find a way. They were able to do Venom without Secret Wars, right, in the costume. So, and I think there was rumors they were going to introduce Venom 2 in the new series, the Andrew Garfield version. I guess there's a cut or edited scene where, you know, back in Oscorp when they're walking through, there's this weird moving liquid black orb that's in one of the cages, because remember they had all the different experiments. They had the vulture wings and some other stuff. So, but Hobgoblin is basically a guy who finds the Green Goblin stuff and then kind of uses it to make his own version of a supervillain. But when I got into Spider-Man, that was prime who is Hobgoblin mystery times. So he was always a favorite of mine. So I'd like to see that, but I'm just curious how they'd put it together, because I don't know if and how they'll introduce Green Goblin, or maybe they just won't. I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I've always loved them. So we'll see.
All right. Yeah, I like the Hobgoblin a lot too. I thought I always liked him more than the Green Goblin, but I think that's because, again, when I got into the comic books, it was more Hobgoblin, less. They were trying to like rehabilitate Green Goblin, so he was more the bad guy that was like that. All right, so my number 4 is a guy we brought up I think last week, and I'm talking about old fishbowl head Mysterio. So Mysterio's whole power is that he is a super. Well, I put power in air quotes. He's like an FX master, and he does special effects for the movies, and basically he commits crimes by creating illusions and all this kind of stuff. But his outfit is completely ridiculous. It's like this green thing with huge shoulder pads, and he's got this fishbowl, or like this clear, this dome that you can't see through on his head. He looks absolutely ridiculous, and I love it. But I think you could have a lot of fun with, obviously creating illusions and not knowing what's not real and all that kind of stuff. You could really kind of go out there with the kind of stuff you would see from Mysterio.
Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty good pick. We'll have to see if I talk about it. My number 3 then is what character we did kind of maybe get in Spider-Man Homecoming. We definitely see one of the guys. You see the character he becomes. So that's Scorpion. Scorpion is the guy who he blames Spider-Man and J. Jonah Jameson. He's like some petty criminal, right? And he gets this costume thing grafted onto his skin, and he becomes obsessed with killing Spider-Man and J. Jonah Jameson. And I don't know, it's just always a cool concept, and I'd like to see how they would work that out. But I want the Scorpion with the tail that actually has a spike at the end, instead of the weird one from the cartoon and the original comic where it's just like a snake tail, it's weird. I don't quite get it. There's no stinger on it originally. So, but I don't know. And then since we're introduced to the character, what's his name? Gargan? Max? Is it Max Gargan? I can't remember now. But
I don't remember.
But Gargan's introduced in the film, and if you don't remember, Gargan also, the guy who plays him is the guy who plays Nacho in Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so Scorpion would be a good one for me. I'd love to see that guy show up.
Yeah, my number 3 is actually Scorpion as well, and it's because of that. I mean, he's kind of one of the last. He's the last Sinister Six member that hasn't actually been on the screen yet. So I guess he's really the fair game. I mean, we've got Shocker, we had Electro, we've had Rhino. You know, and granted, all of those were pretty of the Sinister Six, but yeah, between him and Mysterio, I think they're going to go with Scorpion, and I think he's a good villain. There could be a lot of smashing and doing stuff with Scorpion.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. All right, then. So, Matt, my number 2 is Mysterio. I agree with you. I'd love to see, because you can do a lot with special effects with that guy, and I think it would be a lot of fun to see Spidey take him on. And they'd have to do that suit, though, at some point. I don't know if I've started watching Luke Cage. I think I'm almost halfway through it. And they do an homage where they sneak in the 70s outfit, uniform, in his origin episode. And I can't tell you how excited I was. But I think it'd be something like that, where we would get the Mysterio get up, where it would be in his origin part where he's doing a stuntman, or he's doing something where he actually has to wear that costume for something. I don't know, whatever it is, we have to get the fishbowl at some point in that film, basically, is all I'm saying. But I think the Mysterio would be a lot of fun. There's a lot to play with that. And I think he's been up for a film like 3 times. He's been in the running as being the villain in one of the Spider-Man films, and he always gets cut. So maybe this time will be the charm. So yeah, he's my 2.
Maybe. All right, so number 2 is Kraven the Hunter. So basically, Kraven is just a normal guy. He's supposed to be, you know, the world's greatest big game hunter, and of course, he decides to. If man is the most dangerous game, Spider-Man must be even more dangerous. So he decides he's obsessed with tracking and killing Spider-Man as part of his prey. But one of the most famous Spider-Man stories is Kraven's Last Hunt. So I think at some point they will try and bring in some of that. And I think, again, it would be interesting to see it be kind of a darker thing. So I don't know if they'll go with that kind of thing. But it's a more of a down-to-earth kind of character. He's not really, I mean, other than being a fantastic hunter, he doesn't really have any superpowers, which could be interesting to see.
Yeah, I don't know if they can go with The Last Hunt in this version of the movies. I just can't. It's too dark. I don't see them doing it, especially the way that thing ends. But that's my number 1, is Kraven.
Is it? Kraven.
And it's perfect because I think you feed on the whole reality TV show, right? He's this guy who comes in to film in a reality show where he's going to hunt down the Spider-Man. And maybe you throw in like a Spencer Smith, where he hooks up with him to the Spider Slayers, and Spider-Man's got to dodge those. So yeah, I think that's the one that's most ripe with opportunity. It's Mysterio and Kraven, I think, are the 2 layups for this that I think would be the most interesting films, and I think Kraven would be the most fun. So yeah, there you go. So what's your one?
Well, my number 1 is one that's not going to happen. Didn't appear in a Spider-Man film, but he is in the MCU. But I think he is Spider-Man film through and through, and I'm talking about the Kingpin. I think it would be interesting if, now obviously Vincent D'Onofrio has already played him on the Daredevil series. He is obviously first and foremost a Daredevil villain, but Spider-Man has a lot of interactions and a lot of fights because he's also that street level villain, or a street level hero. So he interacts with Kingpin a lot. I think they could do a lot with the Kingpin. I mean, I don't know if it'll ever happen, because obviously if you're going to have a shared universe with a bunch of TV shows, you'd have to bring in Vincent D'Onofrio, which could be fine. And maybe you would bring in Daredevil as well at some point. But I don't know. I think if you had the whole thing of, him coming in and, trying to buy up the neighborhood or something like that and kind of push people out and things like that, it could show Spider-Man as like kind of the hero of the people or defender of his thing. So I think it would be kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, and it'd be a way to introduce some other villains too that could be like employed by Kingpin. That's why I didn't include him, is because he's established in the Marvel Cinematic Universe already. So, So do you have any honorable mentions then?
Yeah, Carnage. I didn't include Carnage because you can't really have Carnage.
Never gonna happen. I can't.
No,
the
it's
guy.
never gonna happen.
No, because he's basically Jeffrey Dahmer. I mean, he's a serial killer. As a supervillain. I just don't see it happen. Or if it is, well, he's supposed to be in the Venom film, right, as the villain. Mm-hmm. So, but that's not MCU proper. That Venom series, that's not connected, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah,
It's
it's
going
a
to
shame
exist.
that we won't get Venom.
It'll exist in the Spider-Man universe, but it won't exist in the Spider-Man Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
All right, so go ahead. What else?
I had Hobgoblin, Black Cat, which is kind of like Spider-Man's Catwoman. He's kind of on again, off again. You know, I guess love interests kind of, but obviously we're not going to be getting that because they've got Black and Silver coming out, which is Black Cat and Silver Sable. And then I think either Tombstone or Silvermane, which are kind of also two kind of gangster type of characters, whereas Tombstone's basically white and rock hard skin and invincible, and Silvermane is a cyborg gangster, he looks really weird. But I think he got to bring. No, I never liked Hammerhead just because his head's so ridiculous. I couldn't see them putting that on screen. But you got to have some kind of organized crime thing because that's a lot of Spider-Man villains.
Yeah, no, I agree. Silvermane was on my list as well. Morbius, Tarantula. I wish that was a fun version, the fun villain. The Jackal would be interesting, except then we could get suckered into that whole clone thing, which we don't even like to talk about that.
Nobody wants, yeah.
No. The Foreigner, if you remember The Foreigner, he was a super assassin guy, normal guy though, but I guess at one point too, he was in the running to be the Hobgoblin. But I don't know, that would be interesting as a foreign spy comes in. I guess that won't work at all. I had mentioned Spencer Smith, The Rose, which is Kingpin's son, though I think timeline-wise that doesn't really work. And The Spot, who is a ridiculous villain with incredible powers if he's used properly. If you're not familiar with The Spot, go ahead and Google him. And then Man-Wolf, the guy, J. Jonah Jameson's son, has that moon rock that turns him into a man-wolf. And then finally, one that just got cut at the end for me. I was going between Molten Man and this guy, and that's Stegron, the dinosaur man.
Okay.
Another special effects tour de force option.
Spider-Man has a bunch of dumb villains.
He does. The problem, all the great ones basically have been used. So do you think they'll just re-go with a different one? Well, could we get a new Doc Ock, a new Green Goblin? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get a Green Goblin because he's already been done twice. I guess I could see a Dr. Octopus. I think that they could probably work that out because it doesn't seem like Sony has any plans to use him again anytime soon. So, yeah, I think that's what they could go with. Although, again, I would love to see a Venom, just like see him pick up the symbiote in like Infinity War, but I'm very bummed that's not going to happen.
I know, it's so perfect that that's where they would come from, but yeah, that's too bad. All right. Can I tell you, Matt, I was thinking about this week. What a time to be alive as a comic book fan. If you had told me, 12-year-old me, that you would see a Spider-Man movie, a Wonder Woman movie, a Justice League movie, that all this stuff would be coming out and it would be good.
Yeah.
Because remember, when I grew up, we were getting the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie, the Corman Captain America movie, that it just, incredible. So, yeah, just appreciate it, folks. You have no idea how bad things used to be.
Just watch some of that old 70s Spider-Man TV show and you'll understand.
Oh, the TV movies? Those are, oof. Okay, yeah. All right, so that's a big show for this week. Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. We'd love to hear from you. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There's something else I'm forgetting. We're there. Just do a search for The First Run. Scroll. Eventually you'll find us. So, Matt, next week, we have a serious discussion. Greatest modern time trilogy.
Okay.
I want you to think about that because we're going to talk about War for the Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
Think about it. I think it's possible. I really think it's possible. So we'll talk about that and more all next week. We'll take a little break and we'll see you all soon.